Hello everyone. Great to see you. It's nice to be back home in Ireland again. I'm from up in Belfast, but I've been away for a very long time on many travels. Very interesting to see some of this video today and what people are talking about education and conservation. So I just kind of want to ask something here. Does any of you know a Mr. Pascoe? No? You sure? Well, let me tell you who Mr. Pascoe is for me. Mr. Pascoe was that teacher when I was 12 years old in a boarding school where I'd been labelled maladjusted and fell through the education system, who inspired me. I'm now 53 and I still think about the guy. Now, I'm guessing every one of you, or at least the majority of you, have somebody like Mr. Pascoe in your lives. Somebody who's inspired you, somebody who's pushed you on. Even at the time when you thought he was a so-and-so. He'd give you that little push, you know. For me, it was a challenge. I needed the challenge. So let me just move that kind of inspiration on a little bit. How many of you got a favourite place in nature? A tree, say, like a favourite tree in a park where you can sit down and just kind of mull over your problems, your issues. It won't help you solve them, but it'll help you feel better about it. A nice coastal view. We just heard about the islands, you know. Has everyone got a place like that? And if you haven't got a place like that, if you had, what would it be like? What would it look like to you? Would it be mountains? Would it be coast? Would it be forest? Would it be jungle? For me, I love the desert. The desert's a wonderful place to be. People say it's empty. No, it's not. It's full of life. So, I'd like you to go to that place, that favourite place of yours, and I'd like you to sit there for the next 10, 15 minutes with me while I take you on a journey. What I'm going to share with you now is some experiences that I've had with disaffected youth, young offenders, people with addictions, autism, and so on. And hopefully I can get it all in. For me, nature is the facilitator for change. She is the greatest teacher I could ever wish for. I just graduated in 2008 with a master's in Addiction Psychology. That's the only school qualification I've got, if you like. But throughout my life, nature has taught me an awful lot about myself. But in recent times, people, more so now, have taught me more about myself. So one of the things I do, I teach survival bushcraft skills. I'm a tracking instructor. I'm a wilderness nature therapist. Okay, so I work with people in nature and we talk over issues and problems. And one of the beautiful things about working in nature as opposed to being in a counselling room is it's a shared journey. When I go out with somebody into the woods, we have to build that fire together. We have to construct our shelter together. It's not him on a chair and me on a chair on a one-to-one. He's the patient, I'm the counsellor. It's a shared journey. So the relationship is quite different. So, just need to take a little drink. Some years ago, about 10 years ago it was, I was working in Basildon in Essex. A colleague of mine invited me along to work with some young boys. They didn't have dads. Their dads weren't around. For no right, no right, no wrong about it. They just weren't there. There was no good male role models about. So we worked with them for several weeks, you know, doing various activities and what have you. And towards the end of their program, in fact, actually, let me tell you, one of the boys actually wanted to cut my hair. I said, yeah, no worries, you can cut my hair. If you go with me now to McDonald's and hold a little baby, we had these little toy babies that would cry, and they had to feed them when they cried. You pick it up, it's like a real baby, it's amazing. You sit at McDonald's with me for an hour and a half holding that baby, you can cut my hair. 3 times he asked me, and 3 times I gave him the same answer. He didn't do it. And at the end of the weekend, he asked me, would you have done it? I said, well, you'll never know now, will you? But yes, I would have. I would have let him cut my hair. Now, these guys didn't have any dads. They weren't around. And at the end of their program, what we did, we decided it'd be really nice to take them into the woods and do like a kind of rites of passage for them. You know, that's something that's kind of missing in our lives now, you know. It's something we used to do. The women would do that for the girls, and the men used to do it for the young boys, you know, 13-year-old, you now become a man kind of thing. So we were in the woods, and this was down in Kent, and their first task was to build a group shelter. And they spent the best part of 5 or 6 hours building this shelter out of debris, standing dead wood. Any issues that came up during that time, they could call time out, and we would sit down and we would negotiate what that issue is, using a talking stick, and everybody agreed within a contract that whoever had an issue had the right to speak when they held that talking stick, and nobody could interrupt. Okay, so they built their shelter, and it took quite a while, and we dealt with a few things along the way. And then the evening came. And the little task that we set them for the evening was they had to go out into the woods in the pitch black. Right? These are kids that are afraid of going into the woods because they think the big bad wolf is there. And they had to go and find a fire, which we had built at the far end of the woods, 60-acre woodland. I don't know if you know, these little glow sticks where you snap them and you shake them, they glow in the dark. Silooms, they're called. We placed them around the campfire. They had to stalk into that campfire, grab a siloom, without being seen by the hunter force, yours truly, get back to their own shelter where there was a raging fire roaring, there was some drumming going on, and we had a gentleman come along, a 61-year-old man, stood at the entrance for them. He represented the elder. Okay, so off they went, and they got their silooms. They stalked back. Wanted to avoid it being captured by me. But as they came back, it's kind of like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. They could see the glow of the fire. They could hear the drumbeat. There was a nice pot of hot stew on the go. They had to walk through a tree that had fallen down like this. That was the archway. As they went through, they came out the other side. The game was over. And there was the old man, the elder, waiting for them. Them boys sat up to 6 o'clock in the morning sharing stories with this guy. I went to bed. So did my mate. There was nothing more for us to do or say. The work was being done between the younger generation and the older generation. And unfortunately today, I feel that's missing. Our older generation has a huge amount to offer. And, you know, no right, no wrong. For some reason, we're excluding that. So when I get these kids into the woods, they're often from the streets, you know. So I ask them a question, what does it mean? What does streetwise mean? And they'll tell you. It's knowing where to get the fix, it's knowing where the bill are, it's knowing where not to be, what to do when something happens, what not to do when something happens. These kids are actually employing survival skills on the streets, but from a negative position. And when they come into the woods, it's quite alien to them. What I try to show them is that through nature awareness, which I'll explain a bit more in a minute, that they can actually take them skills that they already employ, that nobody else has taught them. They just know that that's what they've got to do in order to survive, because they've perhaps had no good male role models, or female role models for that matter, around to guide them. So they've got to take I bring them skills that they've learnt on the streets, and we apply them in the woods in a positive way. So there was one young chap I was working with. In fact, there was a group. He didn't engage for the whole day. Tried everything I could think of to engage, and I was working with my partner at the time. The social workers were there. No matter what I tried, he just wouldn't engage. And then kind of like, I was trying to get him to engage with fire by friction. Do you know about fire by friction? It's the old rubbing the two sticks together, get a nice little ember, and you light your fire with it. Amazing tool. So I was trying to encourage him to do that, and he just wouldn't have it. So in the end, what I said was, for my partner to take the rest of the group off, and I'd just stay with this guy, because it just kind of felt like it needed a one-to-one. Social worker stayed with us, talked a little bit, encouraged him a little bit. Yeah, I'll make an effort, mate. Yeah, I'll have a go at it. So he started to make a little go at it. Got his bow drill with the old spindle, started to work at it. And I'm encouraging him, saying, look, you know what, you can ask for help if you want. It's, you know, it's okay. And eventually he agreed. And we were both down and all, you know, down here like this, bowing away. He's opposite me and we're pumping away with this bow drill. And there was smoke pouring out of this base. Okay? At that point, it was time to go home. They said, come on, we've got to go. So, no, sorry, another 5 minutes. We want to get an ember. So we pushed it. We pushed it. We didn't get an ember, and we didn't light a fire, but we got lots of smoke. What was interesting about this kid was, at the end of their program, they have to do like a report on how they found their program. The only thing this boy did was he drew a picture of a really good likeness of myself, my partner, Merlin. Merlin's my European eagle owl. I have a big European eagle owl, and he helps me with the work I do. Him doing the bow drill, but right next to him was a fire with flames coming out of it. I think that's amazing. This kid's gone away. He didn't get fire that day, but somewhere inside him, he actually believes he's going to achieve that one day. Amazing. Fantastic. And at that point, you don't want any money, because that's reward enough. So, some years later, I was kind of guided to go and work in a rehab. I have to tell you, what I knew about addictions then, you could write on the back of a stamp, put your name and address on it and stick another stamp on top. Absolutely nothing. I knew nothing about addictions, and I worked in this rehab for 2 years. And I was given an opportunity to take the guys out into nature and just kind of play some games. Now, you know, a fox cub learns to hunt through play. We learn to hunt through play. We learn to do what we need to do through play. The kids on the street learn how to survive by knowing how to play the game. So I took Nature Awareness, which is something I've always kind of known, but I never had a language for until I came back to the UK. I was living in Germany for 20 years. And I met a friend out in the UK who kind of gave me, his name's Thomas, who gave me the language for what it is I kind of do today. So what I do is I take a series of nature-based games, exercises, activities, whatever you want to call them, and I play them with people. And every game's different depending on the people you're with. And one of the things I do is I get them to take on the role of an animal. And when they take, in the case of addictions, when they take on the role of an animal, they forget about who they are. And their behaviour can manifest. And at that point, that's when we kind of do the interventions, and it'll be a group intervention. It won't just be me on my own. So I'll give you a scenario of one of the games. I call it animal tag. So what I had 3 guys over here. They were all blindfolded. And that's kind of the only real tool I use, a blindfold. And they all had to hold hands. And over here was a group of women who weren't blindfolded. They also had to hold hands, and they represented a herd of deer. These guys were a pack of wolves. And the game had to play as such. These guys, as the pack of wolves, blindfolded, had to find the herd of deer, separate one of them, and take them down, just like you would in the wild. So they set off, and it was really interesting. The guys are kind of moving around and trying to work out where the deer are. The deer are looking. Yeah, there's no danger. We'll just nosy out, have a bit of feed here, just keep an eye on them. Oh, hang on a minute, they're getting a little bit close now, so we'll just back away a little bit more. And the closer the wolves got, the more the deer kind of became jittery, you know. But at one point, one of the guys broke away. And believe it or not, he even howled like a wolf. was quite interesting. But when we looked at that process and what that was about for him, he suddenly realised just before he goes to get his fix, that's what he does. That's what goes on for him before he goes to use. Now, I would suggest he would not have got that in a counselling room. You know, 4 walls, 2 chairs. It wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have known about that bit of behaviour. Now that he's aware of it, and this is what it's about awareness of yourself. And you know, for me, it's about my relationship with myself in nature, my relationship with you guys in nature. Hopefully you're still enjoying your landscape, your tree that you're sat under, and my relationship with what I see as my creator. Okay, so, and it's all about awareness. So this guy realised what he does before he uses. It's now up to him to go and do something about it. Okay? Recently, my cousin up in Belfast, she took her kids out. She's got 3 autistic boys. She took them out and did a game with them called Meet a Tree. And that's basically about pairing 2 people off. One is blindfolded, and you take them off into the woods by an indirect route, and you introduce them to a tree. They spend a few minutes connecting with that tree, and then they come back to me, in this case their mother. They remove the blindfold, and then they go back and find their tree. It often happens that everybody that I've taken out finds their tree, raises questions. How did that happen? Why did that happen? My aim as a counsellor, if you like, is to get them to answer their own questions. Because the majority of people already have the answers to their own questions. I can tell you now, in terms of addiction, when they would come back for top-up or whatever, having done Meet a Tree, which is usually the first game I play with them, because it's a very simple game. It's enough to take you out the box, but not to freak you out, but to raise enough questions so that you come back for more. First question they ask me is, Jeff, how's my tree? Don't know, mate, don't remember which one you had. I've seen so many people. Do you know what, before I check in, I'm going to go and look for my tree. And they go off and they give it a hug. I'm okay with it, I like hugging trees. The point I'm making there is that they've formed a relationship with that tree. They've formed a bond. That tree has given them something to help them through their addiction. It's not a standalone intervention, what I do. It's in support of whatever program they're engaged in. But nature seems to be, for me, the major facilitator for change. You know, I get people to play their life story on a guitar. I get people to play the life story of the wood that makes up a piano. And the amazing things that come out of it. Tracking, I use tracking as well now. I'm really looking into that as a way of getting people to explore their emotions and feelings, you know. From your footprint, you can get more information than you can from a fingerprint, you know. It can tell you how you feel, it can tell you what you're thinking, if you've got an ailment. You know, these are all things there. So there was one time I was out on the sand dunes with some kids with ADHD, Asperger's and Tourette's. We were following a trail. They actually ended up on the wrong trail, but you know, it doesn't really matter. But they found this footprint and they spent 20 minutes looking at this footprint. They talked to each other. They got each other to go off and look at other tracks to see if it was the same one, if it was the person that they were actually following. This was just quite amazing. For 20 minutes, these kids were engaged on this one footprint, which they wouldn't normally do. You know, their attention span was quite short. So we were talking about education earlier, you know. How does that work? Education. Well, I didn't get anything from school other than playing truant, learning how to work the system, saying the right things because that's what the teacher wanted to hear, so I didn't get a clip round the head, Do you know what I mean? So I learned how to survive, but educationally I didn't learn that much. But I have learned over the years from nature and from people. So here I am now, I'm taking these kids out, and I discover that, you know, my actual role is as a caretaker, to try and nourish them, to try and encourage them, because once they're settled into the woods and they've got over the bugs and it's dirty and stuff, they don't want to go home at the end of the day, because they've enjoyed building their shelter, they've enjoyed running through the woods like crazy. You know, the things that we used to do when we were kids, you know, go climbing trees, going down to the pond and looking at the newts and the frog spawn, and some of the things we're not allowed to do today. We don't let them out into the woods anymore. You know, coming back over to Ireland, I was saying earlier, I just realised on our doorstep we have a vast wilderness here. There's, you know, there's hardly anything. I mean, there's no train system down here. I think that's tremendous. I'm waiting for my horse and cart so I can go and enjoy the countryside, do you know what I mean? So in this country alone, you have a huge resource to help encourage and nurture the kids for tomorrow. I mean, there are some lovely projects going on here, but who's going to do them tomorrow if we're not encouraging them and nurturing them right now? You know, I say to them, how does respect work? And the answer is usually, well, you've got to earn it. I've changed my views on that over the years. I don't know any of you guys. Well, I've met one or two. So as far as I'm concerned, you come to me with all the respect that you deserve, because I don't know you. Why would I put you down and put me up on a pedestal? You've got to earn my respect. So you've got to work hard for it. I've set the goal here and you don't even know what it is. So you come with the respect already. And I say to the kids, the only time that goes away is when you do something to take it away. But do you know what? The door's still open. I won't shut it in your face. Okay? So, and I find if we just, or no, let me keep it in the eye. If I take the time to listen, if I take the time to remember when I was their age, you know, I was class maladjusted back then. Some would say I still am. You know, what does that mean? When I take that time to spend with them, I find they teach me so much about myself, the young offenders, the disaffected youth, the autism, the addictions. Doesn't really matter what it is. They teach me so much about myself. And for that, I'm actually quite grateful, because I have learnt a huge amount. So here's the thing. I'm wondering, if you were thinking like me, who's going to be there, Mr. Pascoe? Who's going to be there, Mr. Pascoe, for tomorrow? And I've heard some nice things here today, and I think there's going to be a few of them around to come. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.